When did a game of hide and seek go horribly wrong? If you ask me, when they started a new round, because everyone had been found except me, at my birthday party. I was playing sardines at a house party with friends. I eventually found everyone else in the living room eating cake. They all forgot I was playing. Would been oof if it was any other day, but since it was your birthday, that's a mega oof from me, dog. I thought I would be clever and hide underneath an abandoned vehicle in somebody's yard. It was covered with hornets' nests underneath. I was the first one found. Got 63 stings. The duckers chased me for a block, just like in a cartoon. Cloud of bees behind me. Hide and seek is fun. They said I said, that sounded swell. I thought I had a hiding place, but instead I did find hell. In fact, the truck I ventured neath truly was the best, but instead of winning all I found a hornet's nest. For future reference, if you just stand really still the hornets will armor a plant or some cheese and leave you alone. We had just recently moved into our neighborhood and my sister, 5 at the time, was playing hide and seek with a neighbor kid. Long story short, kid couldn't find her. All the adults started going around the neighborhood shouting for her. It was getting dark. After a while my parents called the police. Someone eventually found her, and she said she did hear everyone looking for her, but she was playing hide and seek so she wasn't coming out until someone found her. Parents called the police back and told them not to come. That's how we met most of our neighbors. Edit. Since lots of people are asking, she apparently wasn't even hiding well. She told me she was in front of the neighbor's garage. Not even in or behind. She is much smarter these days, but still very stubborn. That's how we met most of our neighbors. Happy ending. Now see, this is how you play hide and seek. You have to commit. Before I was born, my brothers and sisters played a game at my aunt's house down by the river. My eldest brother decided to hang by his fingertips inside the water well. Meanwhile, and unknowing of that fact, my other brother thought about hiding up inside the little steeple cover of the well, and to get to it needed to slam shut the well cover. LMAO. Slam. Blood curdling scream. Splash. Cries for help. Between fits of unadulterated anger interspersed with disbelief and worry, my aunt, grandmother, and mom managed to get him pulled up, which wasn't easy, because with all of those smashed fingers of his he couldn't hold tight to a rope. That is straight up nightmare fuel. And this is why children shouldn't be allowed to play near well houses. Also, who the duck thinks hanging into a well is a good idea? I was a waiter and some kids from a party I was serving played hide and seek, and about 5 minutes later they had to come back because the chef came to cook. Teppanyaki restaurant. There were 2 guardians looking after the children, and one of them realized that a child was missing and freaked out. It was like a mini manhunt in the restaurant. This was all done by the guardians. Since they didn't tell anyone, I just overheard them and decided to watch what they would do. After about 5 to 10 minutes of searching, the girl comes out crying they forgot about me. She was in the bathroom the whole time, and she was quiet when they called for her because she thought they were still playing. Why would you play hide and seek in a restaurant? Kids are ducking stupid. When I was a kid, my 2 older brothers would always make me be it. One time they both hid in a trunk full of clothes. I was probably 6 or 7. So I decided to lock them in. Only I didn't have a key. They panicked like crazy and were having trouble breathing. The babysitter was going crazy. I think she broke the lock eventually, but it was some scary moments. My grandmother lost her sister to a military latching trunk. She was 6, I think, and suffocated, only to be found many hours later. Going crazy? Man, it'd be scared as duck to have the parents come home to find 2 of the kids locked in a trunk. She must have been babysitting herself. From the great British actor David Niven's Wikipedia page, while on leave in 1940, Niven met Primula Primi Susan Rollo, the 18th of February 1918, London the 21st of May 1946. Primi died at the age of 28, only 6 weeks after the family moved to the US. She fractured her skull in an accidental fall in the Beverly Hills, California home of Tyrone Power, while playing a game of hide and seek. She had walked through a door believing it to be a closet, but instead, it led to a stone staircase to the basement. I never really trusted Tyrone Power to be a responsible adult. Well, this just made me incredibly sad. So when I was a wee kid and a scout, we played hide and seek in the dark. We usually played something like this every time the last 15 minutes. It was a medium-sized cabin, essentially. There was a lot of places to hide, lots of stuff just lying around. For some reason there was a coffin there and nobody, as far as I know, ever hid inside. Because it's a coffin, and that's just creepy. But my smarter hid inside it. Unlucky for me, another kid also looking for a hiding spot saw me. He decided to lock the coffin I was inside of. Yeah, I had claustrophobia for quite a while afterwards. Peas. I have an intense hatred of the name Marcus, because that was the dastard's name. What kind of friends do y'all have? You just threw me back into the past. I used to play this kind of hide and seek plus tag game in our basement that we could easily blot into complete darkness. It was fun as duck. Someone would count at the top of the stairs, flip the lights off, have to find and tag the others, and then when they got tagged they had to wait on the steps. Quite a few injuries and slamming into each other though. I had the advantage because it was my basement, so I had that muscle memory of where Chiz was. Was playing hide and seek with two friends when we were like 10. Me and my friend found a fantastic spot and hid there together, and our other friend couldn't find us. Ended up going home to get his mom so she could tell us to come out and yell at us for hiding too well. Yes, this actually did happen. If I were that kid in that situation and I really couldn't find them whatsoever, and I was all alone and even after a longer while they didn't come out, I get why he did that. I'd start to feel excluded and would probably get scared that something happened to you too. I'd be so lost that I wouldn't know what else to do other than running home. He probably didn't want you to get yelled at, and the mom was probably just stressed out too cause she thought there might be two kids missing. Also she might have gotten upset about the fact that you left him alone for so long. All depends on for how long he was searching of course. So, what made it such a good spot? Where were you hiding? When I was about 8 years old, my little brother who was 6 at the time and my little sister who was 3 years old were playing some type of easy hide and seek in my grandparents' backyard. Well, there are woods behind their house. Our sister, being a defiant toddler, ran into the woods and my brother just saw her run in and ran in after her. They were in the woods for hours because she ran in so deep, and they both got turned around. Our brother found a hunting post, climbed up it into the tree, and found a way out. They then knocked on doors, covered in dirt and scratched up, until someone answered. A woman gave them a ride back because our brother was able to point out landmarks to get back to our grandmother's house. They got back while my mother was on the phone with the cops. They were discussing a helicopter to find them. We were this close to a search party. They walked a collective 2 to 3 miles. They could have gone miles deeper into rural woods if they didn't keep going one way and find the post. So yeah, watch your damn kids lol. Telling them don't go into the woods does not guarantee they will listen. Edit. I misused Amber Alert, but we were very close to a search party. Also the police were called and still showed up to give the kids a talking to. Nothing was learned, and we were repeatedly locked outside on nice days with woods behind our own house. Good thing your brother followed her. That may have ended much worse if he didn't. To be honest, your brother was extremely smart. Yeah, maybe he could have went to an adult when he saw his sister head into the woods, but that would take a while and she'd be all alone. And him using the hunting post to find their way out was genius. And going door to door and finally pointing out landmarks so they could be driven back was perfect. I just think this is a really interesting story. Thanks for sharing it. My grandma was Jewish, and she was playing hide and seek with her brother as kids. She hid well and was very happy. The thrill of excitement from finding the perfect spot. Nobody would find her there. Then, out of nowhere, a group of Nazi soldiers break in the house. My grandma told me this story, and at this point, she starts crying. She told me she couldn't see anything, but she could hear the screams of her own family as they were carried away. Her mother, her father, her brother and her sister were all taken that, and she never saw them again. She was left alone in this world. It had truly traumatized her to this day, and I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. I was and still am horrified at this story. She was lucky to be alive. Hope you're at peace now, Grandma. Rest in peace. I have to wonder if, being that she was so young, this game of hide and seek might have been how her parents rehearsed hiding the children when the time came. It's easier to get a little kid to commit to a game of hide and seek than it is to get a kid to hide for an actual emergency. If this isn't too personal of a question, may I ask, what did she do when she was left alone as a Jewish girl in the middle of World War II? I'm curious to hear the rest of her story. I managed to send an entire store on lockdown and freak out my entire family when I was maybe 5 years old. My family was at Lowe's, and I decided to take my Kirby plushie with me and hide behind some shelves or boxes and see if they could find me. Turns out they couldn't and ran around outside because they thought someone kidnapped me. The entire store went on lockdown for a missing child, all the while I'm sitting, giggling, and waiting for them to find me. I eventually came out of hiding after my mom pardoned me and got in huge trouble afterwards. I never hid in public again as a kid. Wait, so is it like there's like a kid missing and was last seen here or whatever and you're like, good thing that's not me, tee. Well, at least you had a Kirby with you. Im was a member of my university's hide and seek club, and at one point the police were called. However, we had proper signage up, so the police warned us to stay out of a part of the building as they were looking for a suspicious person. What neither the police nor we had figured out yet was that we were the suspicious figure that had been reported. A college has a hide and seek club. A college. My 10-year birthday party. My friends and I played hide and seek Caterpillar edition. We put sleeping bags over us and wandered around in the dark to find each other. One of my friends lunges to tag another friend, fell and went top head straight into her face, knocked out 2 adult teeth, and broke her nose. Blood everywhere. She had to go and get surgery. Her parents threatened to sue my parents, but eventually got over it. She was never allowed to come to my house again. Parents threatened to sue. For duck's sake, kids do dumb shit, including their own. Things happen. This one is the winner for me because of the other parent's stupidity. Sounds like the average game of night crawlers. Was playing hide and seek by a river while going camping. It was kind of dark out. Went to hide in some bushes near the river. Went to step into the bushes and it was steep drop off into the river. Got completely soaked above my knees. It took them a while to find me though. That cold vended a hell of a lot worse than soaked legs. My friend hid in the drawer under my bed. I found her and pulled the drawer out. When she moved forward to climb out, it tipped and the edge landed on my big toe. Fast forward 6 hours, and I'm in R&D having a hot needle jammed into my toenail to release the pressure of the blood that had built up behind the nail. Yes, it did spurt blood. But my toenail fell off a week or 2 later, which was pretty cool. We were about 8 years old. One of my friends hid under the bed, so his brother started jumping on the bed. He stuck his hand up to brace the bedding above him, and the next time his brother jumped it snapped his arm. When I was around 6 I went inside near the top of the drawer. Size was close to this. I had the drawer open and was about to climb in when the drawer tipped over onto me. It was so heavy, and with a lot of effort I got out from under it. And my sibling actually got into one of the compartments, so they were trapped until I got out. While shopping with my 5-year-old daughter, she ducked into a circular clothing rack. Unbeknownst to me, she had been standing right next to me, so I realized quickly she was missing, began freaking out and screaming her name. They locked the store down and began searching everywhere. Only when they began paging her over the loudspeaker and asking other shoppers to be on the lookout did she pop out. Upon being reunited with me she said, "Hi mommy, oh I forgot to tell you I was playing hide and go seek." Another reason why children are a bad idea, my mom would tell me if I ever hid in those circular clothing racks, someone would pick me out and buy me, and I'd never see her or anyone in my family ever again. Yay, I never went in one of those again. Oh, I have a good one. Didn't happen to me, but a friend of mine, but I was in that game of hide and seek. Here I go. When I was 8, I was at a birthday party of my neighbor's daughter. We had mutual friends, and one of them, let's call him Toby, wasn't really the brightest. We all weren't, but he took the cake, like eating a dead wasp once, and then wondering why his mouth was swollen. Anyway, the daughter then all challenged us to a game of hide and seek. For context, they lived on a farm which wasn't the smallest, so there was plenty of space to hide, but to not draw this game too lengthy, we all agreed to only hide in the barn, and on the main plot, and not the meadow behind it. It only took the daughter about 15 minutes to find me, and the other kids invited to the party, except for said Mr. Darkhead Toby. After about half an hour of searching for him, we started to get concerned. By this time, it was about 5:30 PM and we were all getting ready to go home, but Toby was nowhere to be found. Our parents agreed to let us stay until 7 PM, hoping that he was found till then. After Toby wasn't found, Toby's parents called the cops and a search squad was sent out. Still no sign of him, the cops gave up. The next morning, I woke up to my parents telling me, in a tone of relief, that Toby was found. Apparently what happened was that Toby somewhat got lost on said meadow and was only found 8 hours later standing on the side of a road that was 4 miles away with his shorts and t-shirt all ripped and damaged. He was only found after a relative spotted him with his headlights. Oh, did I mention that Toby was new to the area and didn't know where what was? We are still friends to this day, 18 years later, and whenever we are drunk or really bored, we bring this story up and just laugh our guts out about it. About him not being very bright, yeah, he now has his master's degree in mechanical engineering. So glad this story ended well, or else my life would be different now. Underrated story. We lost the kid in a hotel for about 2.5 hours and his mum was freaking out, getting the staff to look for him and threatening to call the police. Just to find out that the kid was hiding behind a stack of chairs under a staircase. I find it weird you said threatening to call the police, like that's an insane thing to do when a child goes missing. Had a friend who once hid in the trunk of his mom's car. Unknowingly she drove to the store, which was pretty funny and a pretty good place for not being found. I rode in my friend's trunk once in high school. Stupid, dangerous, and so much fun. Funny until they die from exhaust fumes. A bunch of my friends and I were playing in their apartment building one time and they literally all forgot about me and went to go get food without me. Spent like 2 hours hiding after the game was already over. Even though I technically won, it still felt pretty cheesy to be forgotten. How are you everywhere? Did they at least get you food? I hid in a tree in the park from my dad. Big park, right in the city. I was up there for about 2 hours. He parked under me several times, getting increasingly panicked, and I was like, I'm not falling for that one. Eventually I got bored and got down, apparently right before he called the police. It wasn't horrible for me, but he was really terrified. Children would see and hear their parents screaming for them to come back and run because a tsunami is coming, and the child would be like, "Tee, I'm not falling for that," and proceed to drown along with its parent, who died terrified and guilty for not rescuing their baby. I was about 5 years old playing hide and seek with my brother and sister. It was supposed to be inside only, but apparently I was a little cheat. I snuck outside and climbed into the backseat of my mum's car and fell asleep. Hours later my parents are freaking out, calling people to help look for me and screaming my name. I wake up and hear my name being called, panic scrambling out of the car and slam the door on my finger. It's still stuck bent at a weird angle to this day. A professor of mine had a similar story. His dad was a big time lawyer in Detroit, often prosecuting members of the local mafia. One summer day, when he was about 7, he decided he was gonna go to work with his dad and hid in the backseat of the car that morning. Once they actually got to the firm, he didn't say anything and kept quietly hiding while his dad went in. Cut to a couple hours later, his mom is freaking out cause she can't find him. Because of his dad's profession, it's a genuine worry that their son has been kidnapped by some gang with a grudge. Meanwhile, he's starting to get heat stroke from being locked in a car during the middle of summer. Luckily, his dad found him when he was headed back to the car after getting the call from mom. I found his mom weird flashlight, and when it started vibrating I got scared and threw it out the window. My condolences. Who throws someone else's stuff out the window? When my dad started playing 13 years ago, the game is still going on. Did you check under the bed? He is with the cigarettes. TL. Doctor at the bottom. I was about 7 years old and we were playing in the dark at grandma's house. I don't remember the exact reason, but I popped into the game a little late and was waiting on my brother or cousin to come rushing around the house, and I was set to beat them back to base. As they came running around the corner, I turned and started to run. I didn't pay attention to where I was and tripped on the wire supporting a newly planted tree. I fell to the ground, my wrist landing on a rock. I didn't know exactly what happened, but I do know it hurt badly. Ran to mom and dad, bawling my eyes out. Dad took one look and knew what happened, so off to the hospital we went. Into the emergency room, and dad tells the admissions nurse, "We need to see a doctor, my son broke his arm." She got a little huffy and says back something along the lines of, "What makes you so sure?" Then dad lifted the damp towel that was covering my arm, and it was immediately apparent. She just started repeating, "Oh my god." And dad had to calm her down so I wouldn't start freaking out again. I don't know how much more force it would have taken, but it was a radial fracture of the two bones in my forearm, nearly compounded. I still remember seeing a couple bumps on my arm, but not much else. TL. Doctor, tripped on a tree, broke my arm, made the admitting nurse freak out. A nurse should be trained better than that. One of the first rules of thumb in the medical field is never freak out or say anything bad when inspecting an injury, so you don't make the patient freak out. When everyone forgot I was still hiding, and I was left in the cupboard for over 3 hours. This guy again. I ducked up bad when I was like 9 or 10, visiting my cousins. They lived way out in the boonies of eastern Oregon. There's a sort of kind of large town / small city called Bend, but they lived about 5 to 10 miles out of town, where rich people have large property. My aunt and uncle went into town to get groceries and left me and my cousin to watch the younger kids. We were playing hide and seek. They had an RV. I locked my cousin in the cabinet above the cab, then shut the door to the RV. I didn't realize the RV door locked behind me. My aunt and uncle had the key with them, miles away. Of course, this was the era before cell phones. My cousin was screaming for us to let her out, and I was powerless to help her. She was in there about 15 minutes. I got my ass spanked that day. Fun fact. Lots of kids died cause of hide and seek back when fridges had handles which you had to pull to open. Meaning when kids would hide inside some of these fridges, they wouldn't be able to push it open from the inside. Edit. Another editor gave a very useful link. Deaths of children who became trapped inside abandoned appliances, including refrigerators, were not uncommon in the US until the passage of the Refrigerator Safety Act in 1956. The law required a change in the way refrigerator doors stay shut and led to the adoption of magnetic mechanism over the then common use of a well. That's not fun at all. Another fun fact. During production of the film Back to the Future, the time machine was originally supposed to be a refrigerator. It was eventually rewritten to be a car after fears that kids would lock themselves inside their refrigerators, and it made more sense to make a time machine mobile. One day I was playing hide and seek with my friends and hid in the trailer of a tractor. When coming out I fell, and I guess I hit my chest or something. But for a good while I lost my voice, couldn't even cry when knocked out. I was 2 at time and me and my 4-year-old brother decided to include my 4-month-old sister in the game of hide and seek. Me being very smart decided to hide in the bathroom with my baby sister, and I thought it was a good idea to put her in the toilet since she was small enough to fit in there. After a minute or 2 I hear a splash. I ran over to the toilet to see my sister's head in the water. I thought she was just playing, so I left her there. Then my brother came and saw her. He quickly pulled her out before she drowned. We never played again. Do you mind me asking where your parents were, as your 4-year-old brother was apparently the only one around to supervise a 2-year-old and 4-month-old? Was there ever a point your mother was like, "Hey, where's my baby? Oh, my 2-year-old must have her. I guess everything is fine." Why was a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old left with a 4-month-year-old sibling? Just asking. Not exactly horribly wrong, if you ask me, but when I was younger, like about 3 or so, my great-grandmother was watching my younger brother, some cousins, and she decided hide and seek was a great idea since we all weren't able to open any doors without her help. Well, I found this perfect spot tucked between the wall and a couch with a small coffee table between the arm of the couch and that wall. So I got under the coffee table. Well, I got too comfy and I fell asleep. Back then I was a hard sleeper. My great grandma gets so worried that I somehow got out of the house. When I wouldn't respond to her calling out for me, she called the cops. The fire department shows up first and start asking her questions about what happened and all the basics. They decided to do a quick sweep of the house and make sure. Well, one of the firemen seen a little shadow move under the coffee table, me, and asked if my grams had a dog. She didn't. So the search was over, and my grams never wanted to play hide and seek again with me. And that, kids, is how I earned the nickname Hide. When I was running through a parking lot at full speed and hid my knee on a trailer hitch. This is why I always take my hitch out when done with it. I've wrecked my shin so many times. It's brutal. I can't even imagine running full speed. My sister decided to hide under a palm frond where a wasp's nest was. Ever heard of that woman who went for drinks in Portugal? Nope. Tell me the story. You can easily get lost in Algarve. Recycling bins in our local district used to simply be 80-litre containers. They looked like baby baths. My little sister was somewhat hit and miss with the game. She was either found first within the first 30 seconds of the game, or everyone would be out looking for her for most of the afternoon. She hatched a plan to hide under one of these containers that had been lying in the yard for weeks and figured no one would have a chance to find her. The bins were black plastic, so no way to see inside of them. Suddenly, as I started to search, she jumped out screaming in pain. Little did she know that a small family of bees were waiting for her. When one of the hiders goes home without telling anyone, FCKU Alvin. Duck you Alvin. My friend Gary ended up going missing for 3 days. He was kidnapped by a registered sex offender who lived in that area. Gary's family moved out the next week. Whoa. Without being too insensitive, was the kid okay? And was the man arrested? Me and 2 others were playing hide and seek. Me and the other guy was going to hide. He climbed up a tree which I helped him up to, and then I went to go hide myself. As I was running away, I heard a rag, and I turned around to see that he had fallen out the tree and slid his back on the bark. Me and the guy who was seeking rushed over to help him. I think I have a recording, so I'll have to find it. Tony hid in the meat grinder. Wasn't pretty, but the sausages were quite tasty. Ah yes, I can relate. My old mate Timmy went and hid in the wood chipper. It was not pretty, but the plants liked it so. Boris Johnson, when there's work to be done, he's in another fridge. Or in another 30-year-old. My sister and mother were playing hide and seek when I was young. Sister was about 5, I was about 11. She grabbed me and said she couldn't find mum anywhere and asked that I go with her into the bathroom to find her, handing me a torch**. I rounded one corner before entering the shower room. Cue my mum hiding in the shower as I shine the torch onto her face and she loudly shhhhs me, and I freak the hell out and run out. I haven't participated in hide and seek since. Edit. Torch meaning flashlight. Sorry, Aussie lingo. I see you're British. Couldn't follow your story because I was too busy trying to figure out who was lighting a torch to go into their bathroom. Bin Laden. How they found him. Marco. When I was 5, my friends and I were playing hide and seek in the woods behind our houses. I shouted and ran home to change. Of course I never told my friends why I left. They just never found me and thought I was still hiding. I saw them the next day and they were amazed by my hiding abilities, but really I was just at home watching Ninja Turtles in a clean pair of underwear. Someone fell out of a tree and a branch went halfway through their leg. That person was me. When I hid for an entire day and my mom thought I fell off a cliff. There were quite a few before fridge doors used magnets to hold the door closed. I thought I hid in a bunch of foam, the kind from foam mattresses. It was rock wool. I don't understand. What is rock wool? I mean, is it hard or scratchy or sharp? Oh no. This is awful. Played in the basement as a kid. It separated into a bunch of rooms and pretty big. I went hauling her into one of the rooms, hit a pole, and knocked myself out. Was playing outside at night at Boy Scout camp, and saw the kid who was it coming my way. So I hauled her in the other direction. Slammed into another kid full tilt. and knocked myself out. Knocked us both out actually. My eye was the size of a tennis ball. Mom flipped her chiz when I got home. When I was a little kid, I was playing hide and seek with my clan. I hid, and everyone forgot about me and couldn't find me, so I didn't know we were going inside. I stayed it out for almost another hour before going inside, wondering where everyone was. No one noticed. I was probably like 12 or 13. And because I was the youngest, my friends would always make me seek. I was counting while leaning on someone's fence. Keep in mind that this was happening in the countryside, in a small village where people know each other. So leaning on someone's fence and playing hide and seek is completely normal. While counting I could hear my friends yelling, "Flav run, behind you, run, Flav runnn." Of course, I ignored them. They used to trick me like this all the time. They would make me look, just so I start counting again from 0. Meanwhile I was thinking, haha, you're not tricking me this time, losers. The next thing I know, a friend grabs my hand, pulls me like crazy and yells run. When I looked behind me, there was a drunk man, pointing his gun at me. Apparently this girl at first ran away, but then she came back to pull me. I don't think the idiot was actually going to shoot me. I think he just wanted to scare all of us because we were loud. But still, that girl was extremely courageous. Well. There was a huge group of kids, probably around 30 including me. I was an early bloomer and I was 12 at the time, so I was already a very horny kid. One of the games a 7-year-old was the Seeker. So I go to a wooded area no one else went. So somehow in my irrational pubescent mind I thought it a great time to wank. Let's just say I didn't finish before the Seeker was scarred for life. Username checks out. This one time a couple of my friends and I had gone to another friend's building to just get together. We decided to play hide and seek, but in teams instead of having one be the one catching everyone, since there were a lot of us. I was on the team that was catching the others. Basically we split off and start looking for the others. I reach the back of the building, which is mostly empty except for a small shed type of structure with a water tank on its roof, which you can climb up to via a ladder. I spotted a couple of my friends on top of the roof next to the water tank and started climbing up to catch them. Once they saw me, they started panicking. Pretty sure one of them just straight up jumped off the roof. But anyways, one guy made the impulsive choice to jump into the tank. He probably thought there would be water in it, but it was completely dry except for a small puddle at the bottom. I saw him jump in and hit the bottom of the tank. I ran to the opening and looked inside, but it was too dark and I got scared cause I couldn't hear or see anything. In the end we had to call the guard to come get him. He was fine, just sprained his ankle, and we all got shouted at pretty bad. PS this is so long and I could have written it better, but I'm not good at narratives, sorry. I was about 9 and visiting cousins nearby. We were playing hide and seek with their neighbors. One of the neighbor boys, an older teenage, hid under the pine tree I was hiding under. He stuck his hand down my pants and violated me with his fingers. It was painful and confusing. I was so naive at the time I didn't know that was a thing. TLDR, my first time being sexually assaulted by a male. I personally hope you have gotten past it. I personally have never been sexually assaulted, so I don't know, but I'm worried you said first. Did the teenage boy get arrested? Because that's the thing that can get you arrested. I hate people like that. You know that feeling when someone is just about to find you and you suddenly have to pee really bad? Yeah. Well, one time, when I was 7, me and a few of my guy friends played hide and seek. After they couldn't find me, they left. I was alone in the woods for 9 hours, and after the police found me, they thought the guys did stuff to me because I had bruises all over my body, but I was very clumsy and fell a few times over rocks. The cops wouldn't believe me, or the boys, so after everything they started to bully me. It got bad, so me and my family had to move. I hid in a dark room and was greeted by a Great Dane, which immediately proceeded to attack me by biting my upper thigh until my friend's brother wrestled him away 27 stitches later. That's my story. One time in June, me and my younger sister, we were around 5 and 10, decided to play hide and seek. Anyway, I was the seeker whilst my sister, let's call her M, went to hide. I looked everywhere and told my mom that she wasn't coming out after I said that I had given up, and you win. So it was a search party for this small girl with everyone in the house as the garden was pretty large and filled with trees. I decided to look there, and as she was little I thought M might have fallen asleep. My grandparents and my mom got worried and dialed 999 emergency services in UK, and they came to the house and asked what she was seen last in, and they even said they'd release the chopper. So anyway, she was found behind the door in the study and learned a good lesson. TL. Doctor, me and sister played hide and seek. She was found by cops behind the door. I was 4 years old and we were visiting relatives in rural NC. After having lived in Alaska for 3 years, I decided to hide under the picnic table and was doing a great job staying really quiet until I heard rustling in the leaves behind me. I was a foot away from a nest of moccasins. I jumped up on top of the table and refused to move until my uncle brought a shovel and decapitated them all. TLDR, Alaska doesn't have snakes, but NC does, and that's something you might want to tell your kid before dumping her outdoors with her cousins to play. One of my friends was playing hide and seek in a big group at his place when he was like 13 or 14. Their garage was an absolute mess. Like, completely packed with all sorts of random cheese, enough so that you had to walk on top of / through things. So he decided that it'd be a fantastic place to hide, but just to add another layer of difficulty to it, he decided to hide by laying down on some of the beams above the track for the garage door. At some point he lost his balance and fell about 10 feet down onto a pile of bikes, trash bags full of clothes, car parts, etc. While he was falling, he desperately tried to grab hold of the beam he was on and instead managed to barely reach the track for the garage door. His first finger on his left hand made contact right on the last knuckle before his fingertip, and that portion of the garage door track had a V shape to it and severed it cleanly. He landed on the pile of junk bleeding and screaming, and he was rushed to the hospital. Some of his family searched for a while to find his fingertip, hoping the doctors would be able to reattach it, and they found it still cradled in the V-shaped portion of the track. Unfortunately, they didn't know to put it on ice. We sometimes now refer to him as 9 3/4, since that's how many fingers he has. I mean, someone has to say it so. Jews in Europe during the 40s. Episode of Punky Brewster. Girl hid in a fridge and almost died. Chiz got real. Cold. Chiz got real. Cold. The fridge was unplugged. Ask Anne Frank. Mom and dad dropped me off at the gas station, told me to hide while they counted to 500. 22 years later they still haven't found me. We did not talk about our playing field, so it ended up to be a very long hide and seek game. Our entire village was used to play hide and seek, and if I'm right we still missing a friend. Hid for so long that I pissed myself. Must have been at least 10 minutes. Still don't know why that game meant so much to me, but at least I was dedicated to the cause. Calling it horrible would be a stretch, but my little brother, around 8, once hid in the trunk of a car. Of course the owners of the car decided to drive off while he was hiding. The best part is really the fact that nobody noticed until he came back, sitting in the back seat of the same car, 20 minutes later or so. Not really related, but this reminded me of a horrible story I heard years ago. During a party in a university town here in Sweden, one guy thought it would be a good idea to break into the closed student pub and steal some more alcohol for the party to keep going. He left without telling anyone and went to the pub. With all the doors locked, he decided to climb onto the roof and go down the chimney. Eventually people started looking for him, and when he was still missing days later the police got involved, but there was no trace of him. Turns out he got stuck in the unused chimney and died there due to starvation. His body was found almost a year later while doing renovations on the building. What a terrible way to go. I wasn't allowed to play hide and seek after the time I hid in the dryer and no one could find me when I was about 5 years old. My brother fell while running. He was switching hiding places and broke his arm. We were about 10, maybe with effect of adrenaline, but we walked home plus 15 minutes while he was cradling his arm and chit-chatting normally. When he let his arm go, it fell limp from the elbow like a puppet strings are cut. My mother screamed in shock. That's when it hit him, and he started screaming as well. It sucked because he could not swim all summer. I, being the good sibling, kept his company. When I found a rusty knife in my backyard. Not horribly wrong, but we used to do hide and seek in the dark. This could only happen at my friend's apartment, obviously at night. I'm scared of the dark, and the first time I had to be the seeker. The first person I found walked around with me, so I'd be okay. Find friend #2, can't find boyfriend. Rick head boyfriend decided to make scary noises at his scared of the dark girlfriend, and I was on the verge of tears. I can't say it went horribly wrong, but I was hiding behind a door and my sibling swung it open really fast right into my face. Everyone forgot I had also come to the Christmas party with the rest of my family, and I waited 2 hours in the snow until I realized they definitely weren't coming back for me. I tried hiding from my uncle. I think he took his victory a bit too far. My butt is still sore. There was a CSI Las Vegas episode where a kid died when she died to hide under the sink. Hidden in a small cupboard when I was a kid, and it was a sweltering 29°C, 84, 2F. Stayed there, which felt like 2 days, probably an hour or 2, sweat just stinging my eyes, neck hurting as I was in a somewhat upside fetal position, and like a determined idiot that I was stayed there till I felt dizzy. I could still remember that it went very cold because the sweat on my skin just went sticky. Not remembering anything that happened after, I just woke up on my bed with a wet soppy hand towel on my forehead with a headache. I thought it would be a good idea to hide behind the washing machine. Turns out there were a couple of sharp pieces of metal down there that I couldn't see. Now I have a huge and ugly scar on my elbow. Oh my. You watched until the end? That's fucking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.